Gotcha. Okay, Dave.
Okay, hi everybody. I am going to share my screen and uh, share some slides with you guys, but I am very interested in having a conversation, and feel free to ask questions as we go. One of the things with screen sharing in Zoom is that it's somewhat hard to see the Zoom crew that I'm talking to, so I appreciate if you can chat questions in the chat bar, and Dave will interject them to me. Is that right, Dave? So,
Yep.
okay, so I'm sharing my screen. Cybersecurity for architects. I just want to, I have several slides and I want to talk through them. I want to say quickly, but I want to really focus on practical matters that I'm seeing with our clients. So first, a bit about me. I started in business 25 years ago, and I love working with architects doing IT. Before that, I worked for Turnbull Griffin Hoslip, amazing firm in San Francisco, William Turnbull Associates before that. I studied architecture, I studied structural engineering, and I learned engineering to be a better architect, and then I punted, or pivoted, I guess is a better word to say, to IT. And so for the last 25 years, I built this practice. I've been an allied member of the AIA for a number of years. I'm also, intriguingly, part of the United States Secret Service Cybercrime Task Force. No, I do not get to protect the president. I go to some meetings and talk tech. But I was also on a cybersecurity TV show a couple years ago. My company, generally we're experts in every area of technology that architecture firms use. I really like to think that we are empowering architects with technology to do their amazing work to make great buildings. I love taking care of all the needs. East Bay, serving San Francisco, Marin, and the peninsula. I've been speaking at the AIA San Francisco since 2006, so this makes 17 years that I've been doing lunch and learns, or seminars or webinars, and have worked with over 300 firms. So that's kind of my background, my company's background. I like to anchor this talk in a trends list. Every year I make a architecture IT trends list. If you'd like to be on my mailing list, I'm happy to add you at the end. I'll share my info. But generally, bullet point number one is cyber threats. Others, mobile workforce, project management, augmented reality, that's right up your alley, Dave. Also virtual computing. How do we handle 28 years of email data and cloud? So lots of stuff that I'm seeing in trends, but of course, the topic of the day is cybersecurity. So I'm going to share with you some quick, scary news clips. I find it's really important to wake everybody up to current realities. All of these clips are from the last couple of years. The AIA, talked about cyber attacks against architecture firms. It is a real deal, yes. The most famous incident I see is actually 3 years ago. Zaha Hadid's firm in London was hit with a ransomware attack. All their servers were encrypted, and they were able to restore using backup technology in place without paying the ransom. Generally speaking, we're seeing a cyber pandemic as hackers are getting more and more creative. The bad guys are out there, and right now it is it is not prohibitively expensive to be a bad guy. So we're seeing increase in ransomware this year. Knock on wood, none of my clients have had a ransomware infection. The city of Oakland had a state of emergency after a ransomware attack on their servers. City of San Francisco saw a similar thing after Oakland was hit. The 49ers local team had a breach last fall. A few days later, they had a lawsuit over the same breach. Phishing attacks are up a huge amount. Phishing is the stealing of username and passwords, usually by trickery. But this is a huge increase. What we're finding is that the bad guys can keep using their most common tactics because they keep working. Identity theft is a big issue. I was one of the lucky 100 million Americans in 2017 to have my identity stolen when Equifax had a data breach. We are also seeing really major impacts for businesses. This one is an entire university had to shut down last year after being unable to recover from a cyber attack. We're seeing nation states coming after major institutions. We're seeing brands that we use a lot. Geico had a breach with hundreds of thousands of driver's licenses stolen. I mean, many of us use Geico for insurance. We're also seeing a ton of spoofing still. Fake Facebook on the left, real Facebook on the right. The only difference is the URL, and if you enter your name and password in the left website, you're phished, and if you do on the right, you get normal Facebook. We're also seeing a ton of Dropbox and Google Drive and OneDrive and ShareFile and Ignite email invites. You can see usually there's some illegitimate email addresses behind them. You'll see often there's some poor spelling and grammar. We're also seeing CEO impersonation or principal impersonation, gift card scams. Several of my clients have experienced this. I had a friend run into someone at a CVS a couple of weeks ago, and that person had $5,000 of gift cards waiting to check out, and my friend said, "Hey, I think you might be scammed." Like we were talking about before we started, smishing and vishing. Smishing is text scams. Vishing is voice scams. I'm sure a lot of us are getting calls and texts on a weekly basis. Some of them very clever, some of them obviously suspect. This is just the next frontier, but usually there's a link or a phone call to make on these texts. Also, McAfee, fake email scams for McAfee renewals or other antivirus renewals. This is particularly dangerous. You call their number, they end up on your machine. And then I call the original cyber attack the physical attack of computer stuff. This is a picture of the office across the hall from my office in my office building in Berkeley. This company went out of business in 90 days because all of their desktops, all of their servers, and all of their backups were stolen. This is my car, this is my car, and this is my car. 3 times in the last 24 months, my car has been broken into. I did learn a lesson on not keeping my laptops there. My son did not learn the lesson. And luckily on the 3rd time, there was no thievery, just damage. All of that scary stories brings me to 3 key facts as I look at the situation that we're facing. First of all, there's nothing special about your design firm. No offense to any of you. Really, there's nothing special about any of our companies as far as cybersecurity goes in most cases. It's true there are some businesses that are attacked because of who they are, but they are also attacked because they're a business. This is a numbers game. The second thing is that small and medium firms like yours, like mine, face most of the attacks out there, but none of them are covered in the news. So we're not seeing big headlines about your firm or my firm being attacked. That said, the bad guys assume that the small businesses are easier targets. So the dollars in the press may be larger on the big businesses in the news, but the damage and the impact is super severe for small businesses. And therefore, these cyber attacks, I argue, are really an existential threat to our business existence. That's why this is important. That's why I'm passionate about this subject. So how do we face reality? How do we get real? Just understanding that cyber threats are on the rise. There's more devices and more people and more bad guys. The bad actors are actually hackers, criminals, and nation states, the modern electronic mafia, if you will. Their main motive is to steal your money. Their secondary motive is to steal your identity so they can steal your money. And also businesses like yours and mine, we have extra liability because we have others' info. We have our clients' information and we have our employees' information as well. So therefore, we need to take a when and not if approach to dealing with security issues. And how do we think strategically then? What works really? I mean, as I've been talking to IT or talking IT with my client business owners for many years, I'm always focused on what really works. So the first thing is you got to understand the situation and the top threats. That's why I have the scary stories in the slides, and I'm going to list the top threats in a second. We need to learn about these security frameworks that are being developed to help us and what the best practices are. And then not only learn about them, we need to implement the best strategies with the biggest impact. It really is an 80-20 space. The short list of very powerful strategies to protect us have a big impact. Also, the goals are really to ensure productivity and business continuity for our firms. And lastly, it's really important that we revisit this stuff regularly, both the threat side and the strategy side, because it's a fast-moving landscape. Again, a reminder, if you have questions, to drop them in the chat and Dave can interject them at the right time. So I want to briefly share this cybersecurity framework. This is one of several out there. It is the most colorful. It is also the government's NIST cybersecurity framework. And so it has, as we think about cybersecurity situations and life cycle, we need to identify or inventory our stuff. We need to protect our stuff by setting it up securely. We need to be able to detect when there is a problem. We need to be able to respond to that problem and recover from the situation. So what my company has done is unpeeled this colorful wheel. And the strategic approach that we're taking says, what do we need to protect? What do we need to manage and secure? So the first thing is our devices, our computers, our applications. This is our cloud apps, our emails, our Microsofts, our Googles, as well as our AutoCAD and ArchiCAD and Revit. All of the tools that we use. We need to protect our networks, whether it's in the office or the home office. We need to protect our data, very importantly. This is our client data, this is our financial data, our competitor data, our marketing data, everything that has to do with information that we hold. And then we also have to protect our users. Users is a very IT phrase, but it's our people, our employees, our staff. So again, what we're doing is combining the NIST cybersecurity framework with the color wheel with these 5 issues with what we're calling the ArcSource Cyber Defense Matrix. So the idea is that we need to have a plan to identify each of the items. So the verbs are across the top and the systems that we're securing are on the left side. We need to have a plan to implement a set of strategies and tools and practices to cover this bingo board, if you will. So this is something it looks like for what we're doing for our clients. We have to have a strategy and plans and tools and processes and people in place to cover the whole board. We cannot just have antivirus. We cannot just have a password manager, and we cannot just have multi-factor. Okay. So how do we cover the board then? the truth is we need a set of plans, we need people, we need processes, we need policies, we need practices, and we need products or tools. I really wanted the sixth P there, and I really want to say tool, but products is as close as I can get. So again, I think the benefit of this board is that we can attack it incrementally and priorities based in order to take it. It's a very difficult premise to do this all at once, all at one time. It's okay to move it incrementally. So the next slide, I'm going to share with you the threats. And in the description for today's event, I said there's going to be top 5 threats. I've decided to change it to the top 6 threats that we're seeing. The first one is business email compromise. And what this is specifically is when there's a bad guy inside your email account. This is post phishing, post credential theft. They actually successfully get into your email account and are living there for weeks or months. Very, very, very bad, because it allows them to harvest all your data at their leisure, as well as communicate on your behalf to your friends and colleagues. The next one is phishing and whaling. So phishing, again, is the theft of credentials. Whaling is targeted phishing for the big fish, the whales in your firm, typically the owners, the finance folks, the associates, the principals, okay? The third threat that we're seeing is ransomware. And this ransomware is just a special type of malware or virus which has an extortion component. There's 2 versions of malware that ransomware that we've seen. The first one was where it encrypts or scrambles all your data and it holds you hostage until you pay them money. And then the second one is where they hold your information hostage and then they threaten to release it to the public. Most of us don't have a concern about our data being released to the public, although it is private, it would not be disastrous. However, there are some industries and some firms, arguably, where that would be horrible. Our goal is to never pay a ransom, to always have a solution in place to make that irrelevant. Advanced persistent threats. This is a very subtle one, but very profound one. And what we're seeing is that hackers, if they make access to a computer, for example, by email scam, they leave behind footprints or footholds such that they can come back later and do bad stuff. So you might think that you got rid of them, but they're leaving behind settings or triggers or ways that they can reinfect later. This is a big problem that we're seeing. The fifth one is supply chain attacks. It's rather sophisticated, but imagine, if you will, what if bad guys got into Autodesk or Adobe and delivered corrupted versions of the real applications to all of their customers. We've seen this happen in the marketplace 3 or 4 times that I can think of in the last 2 years, and they've been huge impact. One of them was in the news just a month ago, having to do with a file sync and share program that many governments use. Very devastating. And the sixth one is what we call insider threats. This sounds a little bit more, I don't know, say a little more scary than I intended to be, but it is the official IT term. Insider threats. It's generally user actions, either accidental or purposeful, that have bad impact. For example, yeah, I didn't mean to click on that, but I did. Or I picked up a USB stick in the parking lot and put it in there. I mean, there's also the possibility of disgruntled departing employees or former employees. We have seen that happen. So these are the top 6 threats. These are not categories of threats. These are very specific types of threats that we're seeing this year. So the top 6 threats have what I consider the best strategies for dealing with them.
Dave,
Yeah,
can you hear
Dave,
me? Yeah, sorry. I hate to interrupt you,
no
but I'm
problem.
wondering, you've covered quite a bit of content, and I'm wondering if it would be constructive to specifically ask people if they have any questions about the material you've gone over so far.
Sure, that's a great,
If you could
good,
just
good
flip back,
stopping point.
yeah, just flip back quickly through the slides so people, are refreshed about what you did. You don't
Yeah.
need to go back to the,
Well, I would ask the question if anybody has seen a cyber attack or heard about from their friends and colleagues, things that you've experienced recently that are either in these categories or others. Let's start there with that question. And don't be shy, please.
I don't know, I can't help with that.
Hi,
I mean,
Dave.
you
This
get
is-
phishing every day.
Hi, Dave. This is Rohit.
Good.
Yes, so I have personally seen the devastation caused by encryption virus. So while I was at MBH Architects in Alameda, we had that incident happen. We lost 1.5 days of productivity. Luckily, we had backups, so that's how we were able to restore. And I reached out to Dave for his guidance at that point of time. So this is a few years back now.
Yeah. 3 weeks ago, one of my friends works at a design firm, not to be named, but they suffered all servers were infected with ransomware, and it turns out their backups had been failing for months. They did not have any data going back a year. And so they lost multiple projects in their entirety, unless they paid the ransom. So in terms of easily jumping back in slides, let's talk this one. Any questions on some of this stuff, folks?
Well, it's not really a question, but it seems to me like this all imposes a burden on everyone to be tracking stuff, and I guess you have to allocate manpower to that.
Yeah.
So
Somebody has to have the job description, or someone has to use a set of tools, or hire out. Yeah.
Listening to some of this, Dave, I think you know that we do not back up to the cloud. We back up to hard drives. The notion being that the cloud can't be hacked until it is. And so we've never backed up to the cloud. I'm beginning to wonder if we should double up our backups, our backup remote disks, so that we've got multiple backup hard disk sources to go to.
Yeah, well, backup is definitely one of the super tools that we have for security. I mean, backups have a lot of reasons, but the ability to go back in time before an infection is very important. Also, the aspect of backing up everything. You can't just back up your server or your laptops or your desktops. You also have to back up your Google or your Microsoft cloud. If you have other cloud applications like QuickBooks, you got to back that up. You have to have strategies to protect all your data. And really the multi-site backup, Bill, I would say is key more so than cloud. So you're looking to prevent against the worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
97% of data loss happens on site, and it's recoverable on site. We're looking for that last 3% of the fire, the earthquake, whatever protection. So
For those of you who've never had to back up from a hard disk, it works. We had moved a laptop from Apple iOS that was the last one. We still have that going in some places. The last one in 32-bit to 64-bit to find that some of the software could not be used. And so we had to clean the disk and reinstall everything that was on prior with some amount of anxiety, but it worked.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
Daniel, I'm sorry, Daniel has a message here in the chat.
mhm.
You want to read that, Daniel, to everybody?
Oh, hey, yeah, sure. Yeah, I just was pointing out that one example in the real world that I observed recently was, the phishers are getting really good at tricking the user to even providing the two-factor authentication codes in some fashion, right? So one example is they got an email that looked legitimate and they actually signed into quote Microsoft, but it wasn't really Microsoft. It was the hacker's website that looked like Microsoft. Anyway, user logs in thinking it's Microsoft, gives the two-factor authentication. The hacker's in to the account at that point. They link an email app, which connects the email behind the scenes. And then they put a rule in, like a filter, to hide the new emails from the user. So the user is not aware of what's going on. Then they go to Dropbox, they click forgot password, receive the password reset email, get into the Dropbox, and then enable the two-factor with their phone. So the user can't reset their Dropbox password because there's a two-factor protection. And then you reach out to Dropbox and they're like, oh, we can't help you because the two-factor was enabled by you, even though it's not you, but it was enabled. So there's really no easy way for Dropbox to get you in to your account right away.
Right. Yeah, we've seen that with also social media, Facebook and Instagram notably, very similar. Yeah, the two-factor impersonation is very problematic. So
So Dave,
Yeah.
So you're just using this example with Dropbox. Dropbox is usually used for documents.
hmm
Like, I mean, architects use it for their design files.
Yeah.
So you pointed out getting money as the motivation of the hackers.
Yeah.
So where's the money there? Can you walk us through that?
Well, they gain access to your data. They're looking to harvest the data for their purposes. I mean, including, hey, I have control of your Dropbox now. If you want it back, you got to pay me. Or looking for documents like financial records or lists of employee social security numbers that might be in Dropbox to then use that and sell that.
So they could extract some valuable information.
We also see a data leak issue with Dropbox because like former employees that might have Dropbox syncing all your company data to their personal computers using a company Dropbox, they sign out, but all the data is still sitting there on their personal machine. So that's another issue. We've also had operational problems where someone drops 50 gigs of photos into Dropbox and it fills up the entire office's hard drive. So
I'd like to ask a question about software and firms loading software into their systems, because I know that there's a lot of concern about that, and it could be software from a legitimate company, but somehow it needs to be vetted by the IT staff within the firm to make sure that it is permitted.
I think the simple answer to that, I'll answer for Dave here. Simple answer for that is to take your server or your laptop or whatever into Dave's office, let them do all that for you, and then pick it up.
That's the Bill approach. Yes. Well, so broadly speaking, there's security and financial and operational reasons why you should be careful installing software in your firm, right? Rogue software purchasing is a big issue that I see, you know. Oh, I just went out and bought a CRM, or I just went and bought a PDF software, you know, it happens all the time. But you know, what we see is people that are allowed to install their own software, they'll do version increments and break compatibilities. They'll upgrade their operating system and break wireless or break printing. And the worst case is, you know, installing an application that is really not an application. We had a client whose personal computer, they thought that they were installing a Zoom update, but it really was not a Zoom update at all. It was a ransomware. So one of the good controls against installing illegitimate software or malware is not allowing users to install software on a daily. Even a small company, even in my company, which is full of IT guys, I don't have install permission on my computer on my daily user account. I have to use a special credential to install software on my machine. There's also licensing and financial and, you know, piracy issues too. Pirated software is actually a big risk for malware. A lot of pirated software comes with viruses along with the payload.
So do you avoid that by only buying from legitimate sources?
Yeah. But we see it all the time. I mean, I had a client once where one of their key employees was just pirating every application they were using right and left. And I came in and I brought it to the owner's attention, and they're like, hey, thank you for your wanting to save me money, but we don't want anything to do with illegal software. So, you know, make right.
Gotcha. Well, no, I didn't mean to hijack your presentation.
Oh, no problem. No, these are good. These are good related questions. I mean, software applications and the impacts on design firms, especially because architects use a really expensive software. There's all kinds of security and financial and productivity impacts around how you manage that. So, best strategies for dealing with these threats. For business email compromise, it's user training. This could count as that. This workshop and MFA technologies, not just text, but also multi-factor apps we recommend. The best strategies for phishing are user training and a password manager. We really need to, and I'll say MFA as well. We really need to adopt better password hygiene. Ransomware, the best tools to fight that is user training, also detection tools that are able to notice it and stop it before it gets out of control. Advanced persistent threats, we use advanced threat hunting tools with our clients, big and small. Supply chain attacks, the main thing we do there is just defer the auto updates and auto upgrades. We do not recommend rolling out brand new versions of applications within the first 60 to 90 days. And last one that on my top 6 list is insider threats. Really, we need data loss protection tools, and we need detection tools, the ability to detect vulnerabilities and behaviors. So one of the key insights is that the hackers don't always use bad software. Sometimes they use totally normal, legitimate software like Microsoft Windows, you know, Task Manager, like Microsoft Windows command prompt. So anyway, any questions on best strategies? I want to jump forward to architecture specific threats, which I know that someone asked, I think Daniel asked about at the top. So the first one that I have is file attachments in general. Architects have a high volume of emailed documents. It is very problematic if you always open attachments. Becoming an email skeptic is a key. Phishing emails from Dropbox, ShareFile, and Ignite are aplenty. It's true for every business. I somehow think that architects get more of them. What's really scary is when you get a legitimate Dropbox share from a true friend who has had their email compromised, right? And the link that they send you is illegitimate. Joint venture collaborations, we're seeing a lot of this, firms working together on design projects. All of a sudden, their two networks are connected, and in order to share server access or Revit libraries, and this is a security threat. Consultant being hacked, I guess that's kind of what I was just describing, right? Like a structural engineer that you work with, you're in the middle of a email conversation, you're not hacked, but they are, and they send you problem files. I also have been hearing a lot. I got 2 emails last week. Hey, Dave, I was talking to one of my engineer colleagues and they were hacked. How can we safeguard? Invoice spoofing is another one. I've seen this 3 times. What this happens is, again, it's someone like one of your vendors or one of your suppliers or one of your consultants that you use. They're hacked and they send you a fake invoice and you pay the bad guys instead of your colleague. I have an interiors firm, a friend that works in an interiors firm, where they sent a $250,000 down payment for furniture bid to the bad guys. And I think that interiors firm immediately fired all their staff, and I don't know if they went out of business, but disaster. And the last one I think is generally inadequate data protection. And this is partly from just long-term projects and repeated sharing. You know, you make a sharing setting at some point and then it happens again. And the fact that we work on projects that last years, it gets a little bit lazy and it gets a little bit sloppy, and sometimes it can get a little bit or a lot insecure. So any resonance with these or any other architecture specific stuff you guys have seen? These are all variations on the earlier threat types that I mentioned, but these are, you know, just this is my assessment of architecture specific. So again, the strategic approach is we got to have plans, people, process, policies, practices, and tools to protect against all those situations. Okay.
Sorry.
Was there another question?
No,
Yeah.
doesn't sound, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
you're talking about.
So I want to move now to power tips. I have 3 sets of tips for you. The first one is for you as a business professional user of technology. The second one is for you personally, personal cybersecurity tips. And the third list is about identity theft. So first, use multi-factor authentication for everything you can. Use it for email, for social media, for banking, for utilities, for every e-commerce platform. Anywhere they offer it for you, use it. And the best thing to do, I think, is to use an app on your phone instead of using texting, if possible, for the multi-factor. Second tip is use a password manager and have good password hygiene. In order to have unique passwords required in good password hygiene, the only way we can manage it is with a good password manager. I do not support the use of Post-it notes on the bottom of the laptop. I do not support, you know, lists of passwords taped to the desk. A password manager of some digital form is good. The best ones can be installed on multiple devices. Really, you need to be an email skeptic. You got to check return addresses for every unexpected email. You need to look at attachments and be suspicious of attachments. It's pretty common where you'll see an attachment that has, say, a Microsoft Word icon, but it's really not Microsoft Word.
Dave,
yeah.
question. We're really careful about emails, and I just don't even open any emails that are coming from somebody I don't recognize. They go right to trash. If I know it's junk, I put it in junk.
Yeah.
The question I have is, what I'm understanding from most of what I read is opening an email is not the issue, the attachment is the issue. But can you have your computer infected by just opening an email?
Great question. Generally opening, no. And the two bad actions are, yeah, opening an attachment or clicking a link. And it's in the, I mean, but if you think about it, Bill, not every situation has an attachment or a link even. Like the McAfee antivirus renewal email.
That's the one I sent you.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, that the one that you sent was a scam. It's also possible for you to get a legitimate McAfee if you're a McAfee customer, right? You can get a legitimate email from them. But you know, there was nothing in the email to suggest a problem for the software, you know, the email security software to detect it, right? Especially when it's a picture. The email security folks are getting better and better, and the bad guys are getting more creative, bottom line. So looking at an email, yeah, rarely a problem. Opening attachment is a problem, and clicking on links is a problem. But the real problem when you click on a link is what you do at the destination. Like Daniel was saying, if you click the Dropbox phishing and you give up your password, right? That's the problem. So being an email skeptic, again, is a healthy thing. Back up everything. Again, power tool, power tip, power strategy. You need to back up your servers. You need to back up your laptops. You need to back up your cloud data and your desktops if they're important. Like I always say to my clients, if you would be sad or you would lose even an hour of work because your laptop fell in the bay or was stolen, you know, you should have a backup of your laptop.
Dave, how trustworthy are government sites? We do, you know, a lot of work at UCSC. A lot of it goes to DSA with Bluebeam for plan checks for accessibility, and the drawings get put into the DSA box.
Mm-hmm.
How trustworthy is that sort of arrangement?
I would say not all government agencies are created equal in terms of their security maturity. I mean, everything from local governments like City of San Francisco plan checkers to UC maybe as a quasi-government to, you know, the actual government, the federal government agencies, they're all different. Generally speaking, I would expect any of those entities to have their security bases covered. So how safe are they? I mean, if they're saying, hey, please give me the drawings in this tool, and that's their request and that's what you do, then I think you're in a good place.
Excuse me, Dave.
Yeah.
A couple things. One, just as a time check.
Yeah.
We have 9 minutes left
Okay.
on my clock.
I have one more slide or two more slides.
Right. And then there's a question from Rohit. How about backing up iPhones and iPads as well if used for regular business?
Great question, Rohit. For mobile device backup, I recommend really using applications where all the data is stored in the cloud already, and photos is the usual exception. And I recommend using Google Photos for photo backup. You can use iCloud as well. I buy iCloud because their pop-ups are so annoying on my iPhone. but Google Photos is my main photo backup strategy. But nothing else on my machine, on my phone or my iPad is not covered elsewhere. Contacts for me are in Google. You know, wherever your contacts live, that type of data should not be native on your phone. The old "I lost my phone and I lost your contact" should never be. That said, Android can have more documents of different types. I would still argue that those documents are being used from apps. Yeah, that's my answer to phone backups.
Okay, and we don't have to read this out loud, but Daniel put something in the chat which people might want to glance at. It's just a story.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also recommend keeping the boundary between personal and company technology present. Sometimes if you're like Bill, you are the firm and the firm is you. And I, even myself as an owner CEO, I mean, I don't have a personal laptop and a business laptop. I have one. That said, more broadly for your staff and employees, I would ask them not to keep their personal info on your company laptops or desktops and vice versa. So personal cybersecurity tips, very similar. You might not be surprised, multi-factor for everything in your personal life. Please, please, please. I've had so many calls from literally friends and family in tears because they've had a loss related to phishing. Password manager and good password hygiene. Paid antivirus software on your personal machines, not the free stuff. It's not worth it. Or I should say you get what you pay for. Back up your computers. My opinion to the cloud is safe and effective. Back up your computers on site and your office and take it home, or back up your computers at home and take it to your mom's house. Right, those are good strategies. You want to cover against the worst case. 14 years ago, my house was broken into and I lost some data forever of my kids, pictures of my kids. Auto update your PCs with the latest security fixes for sure. And then remember, this one is in honor of my mom. My mom, bless her heart, is a very gullible, I think she's a very, very prime hacker scammer target. Remember that nobody ever calls you to help you. If you're getting a call from Apple or Social Security or Microsoft or the banks, it's not really them. So just keep that in mind. Protecting against identity theft really quickly. Again, I'm sharing with this because I had my Social Security number stolen, and I've had impacts of that, and I'm assuming that I have to take steps for the rest of my life as a result. Safeguard your personal information as much as possible, who you share it with, where you share it, and how you share it. As little as possible and as secure as possible. Freeze your credit. Highly recommend everybody do this no matter what, even if you've never had your identity stolen. What this does is it prevents people from opening bank accounts, getting loans, credit cards, utilities, services in your name and social. This is what happened to me. Someone signed up for Comcast in another state, and I got an alert when I was sent to collections and found out someone had signed up for Comcast in Houston in my name. So I had to go through that process. Monitor your accounts regularly, especially your bank accounts. I recommend setting alerts for financial activities that are suspicious, whether it's large deposits, large withdrawals, dropping below a certain balance. Be careful with your email, text, and phone. That's kind of about scammers and everything we just talked about, of course. Definitely shred sensitive paper documents. Shredders are your friend. And lastly, I recommend obtaining identity theft insurance. This is different than identity monitoring or credit monitoring. If you actually have an insurance policy that covers identity theft events, you'll be in good stead, or better stead than if you don't. similar, you should obtain cyber insurance for your business while I mention it. So
Yeah, Daniel asked
Okay.
a question.
that's my last one.
Yeah, Daniel asked a question about the use of cyber.
Yeah.
liability.
We highly recommend cyber liability insurance as a safety net and as risk transfer, right? Like, we're seeing the cost of such insurance go up. We're seeing the exclusions on cyber insurance go up. They're not all created equal. Every insurance company under the sun is making policies, but not all of them are equally good. So the key thing to understand is what's included and what is excluded. For example, some policies are coming out now with no ransom payouts. That's not going to help you with ransomware. But at this point, I recommend it for every business because you want to avoid the 65,000 or the 200,000 or the $500,000 events that insurance will protect you for, even if you're small.
Okay,
I've seen my insurance premiums go up 6x in the last 6 years. So.
Okay, Dave, I want to
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
We're not quite at 6 o'clock, but I want to make sure that we thank you.
Sure.
Please. This is just the last chance to ask questions.
Yeah. Any questions from Arvind or Kitty?
Yeah, welcome, Kitty. Thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you again, Dave. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I mean, you gave us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So,
I know it's a lot of material. It's just like fire hose in a certain extent. I do hope that it was both scary and insightful and valuable. And part of my approach is to, again, to share with you what works. But I also realizing it's an overwhelmingly complex set of issues. So yeah. Hi, Kitty.
Hi.
Any
okay.
questions?
Doesn't seem like it. Okay, so just so everybody knows, we have these meetups typically on the third Wednesday of every month. I'm not sure there will be one next month, but just please keep your eye out for another meetup at this time. Always design tech. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye to everybody.
Bye.
I'm not sure if I have to do something to
I think there's a stop recording button at the bottom.
um
I always like to do that before I hit end meeting.
yeah, so I'm looking for that. I'm gonna
Very bottom of the window.
chat. And widen it up. There we go. Stop recording.
And did you do